let's start the show off with my pick of the week. And that book is Immortal Hulk number 5.
Winner, Gagnon.
This book is fantastic. What makes this book so great is that they're going back to basics with the Hulk. There's no crazy premise. It's just the Hulk traveling America as like the lone monster that he can't control himself. Fantastic. So in this storyline, this character Sasquatch, who is a lot like the Hulk in that he like is a regular guy, but then this monster takes him over and he's really strong and powerful. And the Sasquatch, he's not able to control himself in his Sasquatch form. He starts going really crazy. So Banner as Hulk has to step in and take Sasquatch down. So this issue is Hulk and Sasquatch battling it out. Some really great fight sequences in here. Really fun. And then in the end, Banner kind of absorbs the gamma from Sasquatch and de-Sasquatches him. And now the Sasquatch is his regular human form again, and he's kind of fine. And then Banner's more gammaed up, and he's going to continue on his journey. And that's where we leave off. This book is so fun, so great. I love the status quo. I want this to go on forever. I would give this an 8 out of 10. Deadpool number 1, Secret Agent Deadpool, is actually a Comixology exclusive title, so this is not in print or in stores. You have to buy it on the app, but considering it's just a digital exclusive, it actually is a pretty good and entertaining book. So in this one, it begins with Deadpool. He's on a horse chasing after this guy in a truck, and the guy in the truck has a little mini horse like the size of a little dog, and he's stolen this horse, and Deadpool's going after him to get it back. And in the end, a mysterious figure shows up that has his face that is half stone. He shows up and steals that horse, and then Deadpool and the truck go off a cliff, and Deadpool kind of fails this part of the mission. Now, Deadpool moves on from this. He decides that he needs to pay some bills, so he takes on a new mission, and the new mission has to do with going after a James Bond-esque figure and assassinating him. So Deadpool is staking this James Bond figure out, and eventually the James Bond figure and Deadpool start fighting it out and dueling, and it ends with like a building crashing and a fire breaking out and Deadpool passing out. And then it turns out what happened is that the James Bond guy is totally dead. He was burnt in this fire, and Deadpool was also burnt, and the James Bond figure's agency shows up to retrieve their agent, and they see Deadpool, and they assume that Deadpool is actually their agent, and he was just severely burned. And then Deadpool decides to play along with this, and that's sort of where it ends and where we're going to go into future issues. So Deadpool pretending to be a secret agent, pretending to be James Bond. I think it's a really good setup. There could definitely be a lot of fun with this particular concept, so I'm excited to see where future issues go. I would give this a 7.5 out of 10. Batman 54 by Tom King. So we are just getting out of the whole failed marriage between Batman and Catwoman, as well as the whole jury duty storyline for Bruce Wayne. So coming out of that, we have this story, and this one is more of a, serves as like a flashback between Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne, and about their history and their relationship. So Dick Grayson in the present is kind of consoling Batman about this failed relationship. And there's some funny moments. There's some run-ins with two D or F list villains. One is the Condiment King, and the other one is Crazy Quilt. Both of these villains look hilarious and have some there's some funny battles between them in this. But the core of this issue is sort of about a flashback between Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne growing up, and when Bruce first took Dick Grayson in, and their relationship, and watching football games together, exercising together, and all sorts of things like that. And also this issue kind of serves us the origin of the cucumber sandwiches that Dick Grayson is very fond of from Alfred, and that gets played up a lot during this issue. And it's a one-off story, so this story is one and done, and I thought it was not bad. It was a perfectly average, acceptable story. It was kind of a filler storyline, but nonetheless, I had a good time with it. I would give it a 7 out of 10. Justice League number 7 by Scott Snyder. Let me start off this review by saying this book. Oh, it makes me so angry. There's no reason I should dislike this book. I love Scott Snyder. The artwork is gorgeous. I've always wanted Scott to be writing Justice League and writing all these characters. Lex Luthor's in this. I love Lex. But I hate this book. It's so high concept, avant-garde, messy. So many things are happening. So many of them are like weird. Still Force, the Totality, Umbrax. All sorts of crazy concepts. They're bringing back from Dark Knight's Metal. They're bringing some of those characters back at the end of this issue. There's this one really cheesy line where Martian Manhunter says, "What does the Justice League do if it finds it's on the wrong side of everything?" Superman says, "It's simple, we..." And then Batman cuts in and he says, "We justice harder." Okay, settle down, Batman. Batman wouldn't say this. I don't know. I'm not digging this book. I'm still going to keep reading it. I will keep reading Scott Snyder's Justice League, even if it goes on for 20 more issues, even if I start to really dislike them. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to stick with it, but I did not dig this book. I would give it a 5.5 out of 10. I'm looking forward to the next story arc. Hopefully we can start going in a new direction. Cover number 1 by Brian Michael Bendis. Bendis has been at DC for a few months now, and the dude is putting out so many books. I think in September alone he's going to have 5, 6, or 7 books coming out. It's crazy. It's too many, almost. So this is part of Bendis' creator-owned stuff. So it's his own original storyline and characters. Now, the story is about a comic book artist, and he's going to a convention, and he meets a girl there, and she likes his art, and she buys lots of his artwork, and then she invites him to dinner. There, she reveals that she's a spy, and she works for the CIA, and they strike up a casual conversation, and then eventually she leaves. The comic book artist then gets a gig in Istanbul, so he flies over there, and lo and behold, he meets that same person again, the spy, and that's how the issue ends. So the overall concept for this book is that eventually this girl is going to start to try to recruit this guy into the CIA, and the idea is that his comic book artist work would be a good cover for his world travel, and I believe cover is a double entendre, so there's the cover of meaning like a secret job you have to hide your spy job, as well as cover in the way a comic book artist draws a cover. But yeah, I felt it was kind of narcissistic for Bendis to write this storyline. It's like if someone was a dentist and then their brilliant idea for a story was, how about a story about a dentist who gets recruited into the CIA? So Bendis just did that for his own profession. Still might be worth reading issue 2 to see where it goes, although I didn't really love this issue. I thought it was okay. Also, I'm not a big fan of the watercoloring artwork. I understand that some people might really be into it, but I like something that's more modern and standard. So I would give this book a 7 out of 10. Another Brian Michael Bendis book I'm going to look at is called United States of Murder, Inc. This was a series that Bendis did before, and I guess this one is continuing off of it. I did not read that particular book before. However, I did read Bendis' book called Powers, and it's the same creative team, and Powers was pretty good. I did enjoy the storyline in that. Although I was never a fan of the art style, and the art style is the same in this United States of Murder, Inc. book. It's kind of very simplistic, and I'm not a huge fan of it. So let's talk about the storyline. I don't think this book does a good job explaining, the world that we're in and what the rules are. But from what I've read outside of this book is that it seems like the mafia has taken over a large section of the United States, and the US government, rather than fight the mafia, have just decided to let the mafia run their parts of the country. We're introduced to this one particular crime family, and there's this female mob hitwoman named Jagger Rose, and she wants to become a newly made woman. So when you're in the mafia and you're going to become made, you're like a really big person in the mafia. But before she can reach that step, she has to fight to the death this really big dude, and that's where this issue ends. Part of me does kind of want to see her fight this big dude and see how she's going to potentially come out on top. But at the same time, I don't really care about this storyline. I don't care about this world. I don't really care about this book. I would, yeah, I'm not that into it. I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. James Bond Origin #1 from Dynamite. This book has like a million variant covers. Let's just cycle through them all real quick right now. Yeah, so many variant covers. But the storyline in this is pretty interesting. So it's about James Bond and his life during World War II and sort of his origin and how he, became who he is today. So it's March 1941. James Bond is 17 years old and he's a student in Scotland. World War II is breaking out. The Nazis are fighting and everything, and James Bond sort of is thrust into the war and the fighting, and this issue kind of ends with the expectation that they're going to England, the United Kingdom, is going to create a new secret service, which I assume James Bond will eventually join. So the artwork in this is decent. The overall writing I thought was okay. I was a little bit bored at times. Now, also this book is set in 1940s, so it makes sense as an origin story for James Bond that's set in the 60s eventually. So those 60s era James Bond movies, this origin would make sense. But the James Bond from 2010, the Daniel Craig James Bond, obviously he couldn't have been 17 years old in 1940s, so this origin doesn't make sense for that. So I guess the real question is, who is this book for? Because I don't think modern day audiences would be into a 1940s James Bond story. But there is some people that maybe are really into classic James Bond and have read the novels that really might be into this. So maybe this is for them. But I don't really know if I fall into that camp. So I would give this a 6.5 out of 10. Bordertown #1. I don't know what this book is. I just picked it up because it was a #1. It's a kind of an interesting storyline. So it's about this kid, and he's a Mexican American, and he's Irish, and he is moving to Arizona, and I assume they're near the U.S.-Mexican border. The book's called Bordertown, so there's a lot of talk of immigrants, and it's very politically charged and stuff like that. And when this kid shows up at the school, he's introduced to this guy, this other kid at school, who's apparently a Nazi and is into white power. And throughout the course of the issue, they start kind of arguing and fighting, and the Nazi guy challenges the Mexican kid to a fight after school. The Mexican kid beats the shit out of the Nazi. And then all of a sudden, we're also introduced to this other supernatural element in the book of these weird monsters. They're like chupacabras or something, and they're from some sort of Aztecian alternate dimension, which the way how you get to this Aztec world is through sort of like a portal that's on the US-Mexican border. Very weird, to be honest. I was kind of digging the story from the perspective of the kids in high school, but once they introduced all the monsters and supernatural elements, I was all of a sudden less interested in the book. I thought the artwork was pretty nice, though, so I do think that's a major positive for this book, but I wasn't that into it. I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. Bully Wars #1 by Scotty Young over at Image Comics. This book is interesting. It feels like I stepped into a Nickelodeon cartoon when you look at the art style of this. It's very like amateurish. I do not dig the art. So the story is about this bully, and when he was in middle school, he used to be like hot shit, and he used to bully all the other kids and take their lunch money and stuff. But now he's in high school, and he's trying to continue his bullying ways, but there are other bigger bullies in high school that start bullying him, and he starts getting shoved into lockers, and he starts sort of like freaking out and being treated like badly. And we find out there's something called the Bully Wars, where all the bullies compete or something, and our main bully that we've been introduced to, he decides that he's going to win these bully wars, and that's how this book ends. The whole thing is very little kiddish. I did not dig it. I would give this a 5 out of 10. Not for me. And honestly, even if you were more in the target audience for this book, like maybe you are in elementary school or something like that, I don't even think they would like this book either. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. And here is a summary of all the books and scores I gave this week. Check it out. Thank you.